Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rembach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show today who's really going to get down into something that, oftentimes people just don't see. Mark Brody was born in the Kansas City area, but grew up primarily in Nashua, New Hampshire. His parents have been married for 51 years, and he is the oldest of 4 siblings, the youngest of whom is 15 years younger. He tried to convince his parents to name his youngest siblings Oops, but for some reason, that didn't go over very well. Growing up, Mark was involved in sports, mainly basketball, or mainly baseball and basketball. His mother wouldn't sign the permission slip for football, as she once told him, Jewish boys don't play football. Growing up, his family was very involved in local and state politics. It was this heavy involvement in politics that taught him how to develop an opinion and be able to support it factually with data. This is not uncommon for what contact center leaders have to do when leading teams, projects, or conducting research on process improvements. Mark first started off in the contact center industry while attending the University of Kansas. He was staying at school for the summer and needed a job. He had applied for and was offered a position mowing lawns, or he could accept the position working in an office setting. He chose indoors to avoid the summer heat and began manually dialing directory assistance as part of a skip tracing team for Sally Mae. Over the years, Mark has had the privilege of working with great leaders in a variety of collections and customer service verticals, including credit cards, contact center outsourcing, auto finance, mortgage servicing, third-party collections, and a student loan industry where he spent about half of his 29-year career. He has also worked for such companies as Sally Mae, Capital One Auto Finance, Metris Corporation or Metris Companies, United Recovery Systems, now Altran, and Texas Guaranteed, among others. Mark Brody is now the founder of BroHawk Solutions and the president of the Austin Contact Center Alliance in Austin, Texas, and he's also a board member for the Professional Teleservices Management Association in San Antonio and on the South Central Board for PACE. He's written several articles on for Contact Center Pipeline on the topics of leadership and employee engagement. Mark currently resides in Round Rock, Texas, where he lives with his girlfriend, their 8-month-old foster daughter, and two fur children. And he also has 2 sons who are currently attending college. Mark Brody, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready to help get over the hump.
I appreciate you being here. Now, I've given my legion a little about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Jim, I am passionate about employee engagement. I think employee engagement in contact centers and in the contact center industry is the most critical part of what goes on in a contact center. Forget about the technology. Forget about the incentives and all the prizes. If you're not engaged with your workforce, then everything else is just fluff. Give you an example. A few years ago, I worked for an organization, and it was a startup branch of this organization, and I knew that culture was going to be the thing that was going to define this. So instead of just bringing people in off the street or bringing people from other departments who seemed to be high performers, I brought in people that fit a certain cultural mode, that had personalities that were going to allow the group to become a cohesive unit, a high functioning team, if you will. And what that resulted in is 3 consecutive years of 0% turnover rate. Now, as you know, in the contact center industry, whether you have a small group or a large group, medium-sized group, doesn't matter. Having a 0% turnover rate is almost unheard of. The way you do that, the way that I work with companies in doing that, is I take a look at how engaged they are, how engaged leadership is with their employees. Do they create a fun environment? Do they create an environment where learning is essential and mistakes are okay? Those types of environments are the ones that are definitely the most successful, where you have the conversations that are occurring aren't punitive, but they're coaching and developmental. And when I work with clients today, as part of my company, BroHawk Solutions, I focus on what are the conversations that are occurring within the contact center. How is this resulting in operational excellence, in a higher customer experience or a better customer experience? And that's where I really focus my efforts on.
So, I mean, for me, you're talking from a place that I have passions from as well. I became certified as an employee retention specialist. I became certified as a better place to work expert. I became certified in emotional intelligence. And because when I was in operations, I knew that when my employees were connected and taken care of, that the customer was taken care of, almost by default. It just happened. And
exactly.
So I would jokingly say that, we can actually put the survey industry out of business if we just took care of, our employees first, because
yes,
we would know that the customers were just, needed what they what it came for. But when you start talking about, you mentioned something about the hiring and the onboarding and the selection process. There's a lot of contact centers that do that. They are, screen a little bit better. They try to find the right fit. And the reality is, I don't know of any contact center that will sit up and confess that, oh yeah, we hire disengaged employees. Nobody does that.
correct.
So, all right. So if they're already engaged when they come in, how do we really keep the engagement?
So you used a word that was very interesting to me just a second ago. The trying. We're always trying to bring in the best employees. So when I was in third-party collections, people would tell us all the time, well, I'm going to try to try to pay my bill, trying whatever. And it became a joke, because trying is a mild form of failure. All right. And if all you're doing is trying to do better than you did the day before, and not really taking a look at what were the root causes of why someone became disengaged. Was it that they couldn't get along with their peers? So were there personality clashes? Was it that the training was just giving them the baseline, and the questions that were actually occurring were well above what was occurring during training? Was training long enough? Were the systems confusing? So for leaders to really understand the employee engagement aspect, they have to look at all aspects of that employee journey, and make sure that they're hitting on all cylinders during that employee journey.
I started picturing, myself going through that agent process because I worked in contact center operations for many years, and I've been in a couple different operations as far as working in them, and then definitely been in several from a consulting perspective. And I started thinking about all of that journey and looking at all of these different touches and interactions that they have with both the company, the systems, and the customer. And I started wondering about at what particular point, and maybe it's all of them, do these agents really start to have areas of struggle? So when you start looking at their life and their journey from an ecosystem perspective, everything that they have purview to and that touches them, where do you often find most companies struggle the most?
The first 30 days after somebody is released out of training. Because what you find is that, or what I found is that a lot of companies will go ahead and do a good to decent job, or a decent to good job, in giving new employees the system knowledge, have them listen to calls that are the typical type of calls that are going to be occurring, and then they get to the floor. and they have a question, and all they hear is crickets, and they can't get their questions answered. They become disengaged. They start making up information. And so you really have to, part of the process is also looking at what the supervisors are doing or the frontline leaders are doing in order to support the first 30 days or 60 days of the employee journey. That's where people are deciding, do I want to stay or do I want to go? Not to quote the Clash or anything, but that's really what they're thinking is this a place that I could see myself 3 years from now, 5 years from now, even at the end of this year, based on my initial experience. And that's where a lot of organizations fall short in the employee journey.
Well, in addition, I think that there has to be a whole lot of humility from an organizational perspective, because otherwise we would just live in total denial. It's not our fault, it's somebody else's fault. And they also will buy into the fact when somebody tells them, oh, well, I found a better opportunity, and that's why they left. And for me, it's like, well, what even gave you, the interest in looking at something else,
Yeah. So Jim, one of the things that I talk to new hires about, and if I go into a company, I want to go sit in on a new hire class. And one of the things that I ask them is, why did you come to work here? And it's amazing how upfront people will be. Sometimes it's, I just wanted to get my foot in the door so I could move somewhere else in the organization. And then they realize that that path is a little bit more murky. It's not as easy to get to. So their understanding of why they come into an organization is there's a mismatch between the HR and recruiting process and when they actually hit the floor. So that onboarding and releasing from training period is most critical. I used, when I was with Capital One, I used to go into every single training class, the first week of the training class, and I would talk to the trainees, and we grew from 0 to 600 people within an 18-month period. So we were bringing in some really large classes, and I would ask everybody, I don't think anyone woke up this morning, stretched, big old stretch, and said, you know what, I think I'm going to make a mistake today. I'll go work at Capital One. And so I asked the same question. Why, is anyone here just because they don't have anything else to do? And this older gentleman, he was probably in his 60s, raised his hand. And I said, okay, so you have nothing else to do, and look, I'm retired. I'm 60 something years old. He goes, I just need to get away from my wife every day. So I thought this would be a great place to come. He didn't come back after lunch, but that was his choice, not ours, because we would have made it a great place for him to be. But if you don't ask those types of questions, you won't know the answers, and leadership won't have an understanding of why people are even coming in their door. Down here in Austin, Texas, it's a very, very competitive market. Retention in polls that we've done, surveys that we've done with the Austin Contact Center Alliance, what we found is that hiring and retention are the top two issues for call centers down here. It used to be that you could bring in a new agent at $13 or $14 an hour, and they were happy with it. Well, now Wendy's is paying $14 an hour, right? And they have flexible schedules. So what is it that is going to draw somebody to your contact center over somebody else's, or even fast food, or Uber or Lyft, or any of these organizations that are out there? And so companies really need to understand why people are even coming in their door. Are they paying the right money so that somebody's not going to leave for 50 cents an hour? Are you in an area that's a traffic issue? People will switch jobs because it's too hard to get there. And so really understand what people are facing, why they came, what they're facing, and what would allow them to want to stay.
I mean, that's a really good point, because there's a lot of things that we all have to go through in order to, show up. Just
Yes.
show up. And if we make it such a
an environment by which, it's magnetic, and
Mhm.
people just, hey, they don't say that, thank God it's Friday. They say, thank God it's Monday.
Mhm.
I get to go back to work. I think it could actually make a huge difference. And the typical response to that is, well, that's the contact center industry. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. I hear that all the time.
Mhm.
And I think your numbers, when you start talking about 3 years in a row with no turnover, just dispel that, crazy myth. So
Yep.
if you start talking about an industry lift and the difference that could be made, where do you think that greatest opportunity resides?
In companies and leadership, really understanding the personality types of the people that are coming in and making sure their personality types are a match for their culture. I think that's the biggest lift that a company can invest in. It's at a company I worked at previously. We used personality indicators to not only look at what the best match was, but also how to coach that person once they got in the door. Because how you and I are as employees may be different than how you and I are as leaders. And our coaching style may not mesh well with someone else's receipt of information style. And so it's very important for organizations, for leaders to understand the person that's coming in, and are they going to be the right cultural fit. And that's how I really was able to lead that 3 years of 0% turnover. Even when I first came into the organization, we were able to reduce turnover by 50% within the first year. So there's a lot to be said about culture, about the people that you're bringing in, making sure that you have the right mix of people.
Definitely finding answers to all of these questions and these issues that have been around for decades in this industry, and the different personalities and all the nuance. It could be very frustrating, but then also has a lot of inspiration when you have that success.
It
And one
does.
of the things that we'd like to look at on the show to give us some inspiration are quotes. Is there a favorite quote that you like that you can share?
I wouldn't necessarily say a quote, but more of a mantra that I have. And I really look at when we were kids. What was the number one question we had as kids? Why? Right. As we got older, it wasn't just as much about why, but how. Okay. So over the course of our lives, learning was a big part of our growth and our development. And I think as leaders, when why and how did you arrive at new information or new skills, and what is it that those skills and are really teaching you? Does that make sense? So never stop learning is really the mantra that I go by, and I instill that in the people that I work with.
For me, I jokingly say that when I stop learning, it's when the last breath occurs.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, look, I've been in this industry 29 years, just about 29 years. You've been in, for 20, 25 plus, as well. How the industry was when we first started in the industry versus how it is today, it's night and day. And if we would have thought that we knew everything back 10 or 15 years ago, then we would have been stuck back 10 or 15 years ago, and we wouldn't have excelled in our careers as we have.
For me, I see that the really the complexity has really magnified itself.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I was in operations, we had two channels that we dealt with. We dealt with, phone, and we dealt with, email and a little bit of fax because we were business to business. But now
Yep.
it's been an explosion in channels.
Yes.
And a lot of organizations don't even have visibility into the work that's happening in a lot of these channels.
Correct.
So, very scary.
Did you, so remember, it was about 25 years ago when IVR really became big. and everybody was saying IVR is gonna change call centers, and there's never gonna be a human interaction anymore. And now there's more people working in contact centers than ever before. I'll give you an example. In San Antonio, 4% of the population in San Antonio works in the contact center industry. That's huge. That's huge.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And I think
Yep.
the national average is in the low percentage points as well. But still, represents a very large number of the workforce. It's very significant.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I start thinking about, those years that you've had in the industry and the years that I've had, man, I've had a lot of humps to get over, especially when we're referring to dealing with, human beings, both
Yes.
internally and externally in the organization. So I know, even outside of that, there's probably humps that you've gotten over that really have brought you where you are today. And we can learn a lot from. Can you tell us one of those times when you've gotten over the hump?
Yeah. So, and I'm going to take this outside of the workplace. So I had the opportunity to coach youth sports when my sons were younger. And one of the things as a parent, and I say this as a leader also, you become very focused on your team or your child and wanting to see them excel, and you forget about the larger ecosystem that's out there. And so there was one time that I was coaching my younger son in baseball, and I thought for sure if he was in this other position that that the team would have won a game or something. And I had one of my friends that I was coaching with come over to me. He says, "You know what? He says, your kid's good, but there's a lot of other good kids out here, and it's not always about your kid. It's about the team." When I brought that back into the workplace, and I started taking a look at how I was putting my team on pedestals and not really looking at because I wanted the name to be for myself and the recognition to come to me, and it wasn't about me. It was about how the organization was more successful when everybody was succeeding, when everybody was growing. And when I did that, when I made that mind shift, and it was a hard mind shift, my coaching my ability to coach people became a lot more effective because I wasn't so focused on just the things that they were doing well and discounting the things that they were struggling with. I really dug down into the root causes of why were they struggling? Was it a concept that they didn't understand? Was it a soft skill that they didn't feel confident in? And a lot of what goes on in a call center is confidence and knowing where to find information. And so when I focused more on that, not just with my team, but holistically within the call center, I really think that's really when it flipped for me. And I became a much better leader.
So, as you were talking, I started thinking about, for me, very similar as well. For me, it was about me, and then that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Because I kept going down that path, and ultimately I had to relinquish those types of controls and relinquish those types of thoughts and those types of behaviors, and then things started happening that were quite different, which for me I found they were more rewarding. So I think that maybe it's a maturation process that has to take place, and we have to feel some of that pain in order to get over those humps. And I also didn't realize for me that I had people who were influencing me to do something different, and I just didn't see it at the time. And I had, although when I think about those folks, I thought about them as being some of the better leaders that I had the opportunity to interact with. So is there some person that kind of stood out to you? You talked about, you reflecting those things, your friend, interjected and said something, but is there someone who kind of influenced you to help you move down this path?
So I would say that there was probably a couple of people. This one person, when I was working at Sallie Mae, I had a manager that I worked for, and I had just graduated from college, And you know how new college graduates are, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make $100,000 a year. And this is back in the early 90s. That wasn't going to happen anyway. You're lucky to hit $25,000, in a new supervisory role. But I was convinced that was going to be my path. I graduated. I didn't need to work there anymore. And I had this manager pull me aside. And he says, so what are you going to do now that you've graduated? Now, I was a history major in college. So my real career paths, did I want to go ahead and teach? No. Did I want to work in a museum? No. But what skills did I have? I could research. I was very good at that. And when he sat me down and said, look, why don't you go ahead and apply for a leadership position, within Sallie Mae, within this center? I think you'd be a great fit for it because you always have a way with people, you understand technology, and you dig deep to try and find the root cause of problems. And that's exactly what we need here. And I never realized that, working in a call center for the couple of years that I was there. And from that point on, I've been in some sort of leadership position since then. So 27 out of 29 years, just about. I had one of my more recent managers, brought me in the first day. And this is a position that I really wasn't thinking I was going to take because I was very happy where I was. But I went ahead and applied for it. I got offered the position. And the first day, my manager brought me in. She says, we're going to be really good coworkers because we think similarly. We're going to be very good friends because we have a lot of the same interests. And we talked a lot between the time that I interviewed and the time I was hired or I started. But she said, you know what? If I need to go to lunch, or if we go to lunch and I have to come back in the afternoon and terminate you for something, I'm going to do it because you have to separate the business from the personal. And so for me, that really was a defining moment because it's like previously I was friends with everybody that I worked with. But she really instilled in me that you can be friends, you can be friendly, but business is business. And sometimes as a leader, you have to make some tough choices, which may not always be popular. And sometimes those impact the people that you actually do care about personally as well.
Well, that was a little, to me, that seemed like it would be somewhat harsh to hear. I understand where you're coming from, where she was probably coming from.
Uh-huh.
You sometimes do have to take those tough actions. But however, it's definitely not something that we look forward to doing.
No, and it's as a leader, it's the thing that from a coaching perspective, that's why you coach, so you can avoid those types of conversations. And that's why you stay engaged with your employees so that everybody's on the same page as far as what the expectations are and what the expectations aren't. And so when I'm working with companies, one of the things that I ask frontline leaders is, does this employee understand what's expected of them? And are you inspecting what's expected of them? And do you give them an opportunity to give a two-way feedback? If those things aren't in place, then those tougher conversations will happen.
Well, and hopefully you'll be able to continue along the path of developing other leaders like you've been developed yourself, because being able to have 0% turnover in contact centers would benefit the entire industry.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown.
Okay, Mark, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Mark, Brody, are you ready to hoe down?
I am ready.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. When I start, if I close my mind to learning, that's the only thing that's going to stop me from becoming a better leader tomorrow than I am today.
And what is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Leadership is not about you. It's about your team. It's about the organization. It's about others.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I care. I care about seeing others improve. I care about seeing others be successful.
And what do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Focus on positive. Take negativity, chunk it out of your life. Focus on the things that are positive and that are working well in your life, and don't complain about things.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? And it could be from any genre.
So there's actually 3 books. I thought about this. So first one is a book called Juggling Elephants, and it's about time management and organizing your life in a way that the 3-ring circus is organized. 2 other books are by John Gordon. First one is The No Complaining Rule. The second one is The Energy Bus. Read those 3. It'll give you an entirely different perspective on leadership and how to be successful in not your own personal life, but also in business as well.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Mark Brody. Okay, Mark, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Listen, talk less, and keep your eyes open.
Why?
That's it. Why? Because so at the end of the hall, when I grew up, there was a poster at the end of my hallway, and it said, "It often shows a fine command of language to often say nothing." And so it's important as a learning leader that you allow people to go ahead and speak and express themselves. You're going to learn more about that person and what motivates them than you will by telling them what you think.
Mark, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for Mark Brody in Austin, Texas. You can go to my website, www.BroHawkSolutions.com, or you can go ahead and email me directly at mark@BroHawkSolutions.com.
Mark Brody, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.